Dan Picard here with Eastmans Hunting Journals. Today we're going to learn how to do a DIY European mount that turns out professionally done. Today we're going to work with an antelope, and from start to finish, from boiling to removing the flesh and the tendons, all the way to bleaching it with hydrogen peroxide to your final product. And if you're like me, you hate to pay somebody to do something that you can do yourself, and in this case it's really cheap. First thing you want to do, obviously, is you skin your animal out, remove the brain. That's one of the biggest things, because the brain contains a lot of fats and oils, and it'll just soak into the skull. And so anyway, got to get rid of the brain. It's actually better to leave whole muscle groups on the head, and they'll come off the head a little better after you boil it. 45 minutes and we should be good to go. So we're just going to set it in here. And what I like to do too, if it's a greasy skull, if there's fat on it, I'll throw in some dish soap. But the secret weapon right here is OxyClean. It's a laundry booster, and not only does it whiten the skull, it turns all the meat and the ligaments and everything on the backside of the skull into jelly. So 45 minutes, everything's turned into jelly. You clean it off, and you're off to the races whitening it. So huge plus. Get the OxyClean, and that'll really speed up and save you some time. Just pour it in there slow. And it's not going to bleach the horns like normal bleach will. We'll let that settle and we'll be good to go. Here. Got to be sure to add this OxyClean slow. It'll boil up on you. It can boil over pretty quick. So you have to just slowly but surely add it in and keep stirring it and let it mix, and it'll settle down for you. And once again, it won't bleach your horns or anything, so this foam on your horns is not a big deal. Well, it's been about 30 minutes and these horns are still pretty tight on here. They're not slipping off or loosening up like they usually do, which is no big deal. We can just continue with the process and then we'll get these horns off later. But as you can see, this meat, it's all jelly. This turned into jelly and it just kind of peels off the bone. So this is done. It's been out here just a little over half an hour, I think, maybe a little longer. But it's done, and all this will scrape off with a knife, and we'll be ready to bleach it. So as you can see, this stuff comes off really easy. It's just a matter of flicking it off, basically. This is all jelly. So we have our antelope boiled, and I spent about 20 minutes and I kind of scraped all the last little pieces off. They kind of just fall off. So it's pretty easy, no big deal. And we're ready to bleach it, which this is the other most important component, is this 40% by volume hydrogen peroxide. And you can get this at beauty salons, and this jug cost me $8.99, so it does a great job. So all you got to do, put your gloves on. This stuff's pretty potent, so don't get it on your clothes or don't get it on the horns or anything. Anything you get this peroxide on is going to turn white. So you want to come in here, Scott? I'm gonna start by just kind of pouring this in the cracks, pouring it in his nose, and I'm just gonna rub it on here, and I'm gonna use some of the drippings, and I'm just gonna cover every spot I can, all the surface area of that bone. I'm gonna make sure it's got a layer of peroxide on it. Get it all down in here, all in the nasal cavity. Everything covered, and then I'll just use my drippings to cover the rest of the surface, and you're just using your hands here. Ideally you'll want the horns off of the skull on an antelope, but for deer and elk you have to deal with the horns being on, of course. So just be careful, take your time. Get all the surface areas covered here. And anywhere where you can see where it's stained dark, like around the teeth, you know, make sure you really get that a good layer on there. And around those bone seams, any place where it's black, like right in here, just make sure it's good and covered. So we have this skull pretty well covered. So now, just gotta like to make sure I lather up the skull cap here. That's what's gonna be showing, so you want that to be the whitest, of course. So you don't wanna get any on the horns. So you wanna wipe that off. I got a little bit. You can always touch this up with shoe polish too if you did bleach it, but prevent the bleach and just get it covered. So I'm gonna let this sit overnight, and then tomorrow some of the stuff is gonna be dried out and, you know, it'll run off, and I'll just kind of reboost it with the peroxide, put another layer on there, and give it 48 to 72 hours. You're gonna be pretty darn bleached, and you should have something that'll come out like this, which we just did. I covered this skull with the same solution and it's set for 72 hours, and you can see how white it turned out, and it's pretty much good to go. You can see right here, anything that's not bone matter is going to kind of show up as a, you know, a darker color, and that'll just kind of be something you can scrape off, but that comes right off. It's no big deal. It's just some of that last tendon. So you just kind of go through and pick out the last spots, and I mean, this is looking pretty darn good. So hopefully these tips, $8.99 for a jug of peroxide and that OxyClean while you boil it, those are the two key things to do a very quick professional job while you're doing your own European melt.